Hey, what's up guys? Alex here, back with the second last video on the World Hotel Championship 2024. So this is gonna be round 12, and just a quick recap over here is that I was actually on 9 out of 11 wins over here, just losing to Song Yan from China, the top Chinese player, and also Kurita Seiya, the eventual champion. So I was just kind of winning. I just won Takanashi Yusuke from Japan, who is also my idol and also a five-time world champion at the end of round 11. So going into this game, I was actually feeling extremely ecstatic, and I had a very strong sense of the feeling that I've kind of way exceeded my expectations of this World Hotel Championship, and at the same time, kind of made up for the loss that I had in 2019 against Takanashi Yusuke, where I came so close to beating him, but kind of wasted the last kind of 4 or 6 empties where I had a lead and just kind of lost by 2 this in the end. So it was a very defining moment within my Othello career so far. So at this point, I did want to kind of just say that, I was feeling very good going into this tournament and just kind of waiting for the round 12 pairings. I was actually thinking to myself, yeah, having I think I've played, both Taiwanese top players, and then I've played 3 Japanese. I was kind of expecting to play Nara Soma, who is actually the other Japanese representative, or Oscar Eklund from Sweden, or my brother from Singapore itself, and also for Joanna. But I think in this particular round, for round 11, I think Nara Soma might actually have lost the last game, so he was kind of going down. So how it works in Swiss pairing is that typically when you win, you float up, and you would play with any other players who float up as well. So for players who might have lost the previous round, if you have won, it's less likely for you to kind of bump into them. So, and given that this was the last 2 rounds, I'm not too sure whether they applied any form of Bard pairings, but yeah, I didn't meet my brother, so in a way, there would be kind of a lesser likelihood of a conspiracy of purposely, my brother purposely conceding the game to me just to get me into the semifinals. But yeah, sitting on 9 wins, I think coming into this tournament, I was kind of hoping that I could get a top 8 position on 9 wins, and that would, really exceed, my expectations. And to kind of have it at the end of round 11 was definitely surreal, and just kind of going into round 12. So eventually, when the parents came up, I was paired against Joanna William from Australia, and she's actually an Indonesian and a very long time friend, given that she was based out of Singapore for quite a few years between 2009 and maybe say 2015, or 2014 for the most part. So I did, and I think I've played her 5 times before on official games, and I think I've won all 5. So drawing Joanna was something that I kind of feared, but also wanted in a way that, it could be a fairly straightforward way to actually enter the semifinals for me. So yeah, just sitting down at the game, I was just trying to tell myself not to be over complacent, given that I have a strong winning record against her. At the same time, I wanted to kind of just ensure my grip on the semifinals, because I kind of know that in round 13 there's a very high chance that I meet Du Zhouzi, who is the second best Chinese player, and he's extremely strong based on what I know. So I kind of felt like I needed to kind of put this away just to assure myself of the semifinal spot in case of running the risk of losing in round 13. So, of course, you can see it right at the top. I did lose this game, but I did want to kind of record my thoughts and just kind of run through and relive this game, even though it was kind of it still is kind of a nightmare for me just kind of re-looking at this game. But yeah, let's see. So I played black, and basically Joanna, I think she has a good mix of openings, so she can play both perpendicular and diagonal. So in this tournament, I did see that she's kind of picked up diagonal a little bit more recently. So over here, after the kind of standard diagonal sequence was played, I decided that I wanted to just play like the Raccoon Dog, which was actually the same opening that I played against Po Yunchun from Taiwan, which I did have success. And at the same time, I did feel confident about mixing things up, because I think most players would play Cow or maybe Heath against Joanna, or against diagonal in general. So I thought this kind of gave her a surprise. So I don't think Joanna had the intention of throwing the game to me, because after the game she did tell me directly that actually she was still kind of rooting for Song Yan from China, which Song Yan is a extremely close personal friend as well of mine. So I myself, I typically have soft spots for him as well. So it was extremely difficult to kind of face a friend and at the same time while rooting for another friend who's kind of gunning for the semifinals. Song Yan didn't do that well compared to his usual high standards for the World of Talent Championship. So going into round 12, I think most part of China's team and Song Yan, they were pretty worried that, once I won this round, I would be in the semifinals, and China wouldn't have any representation within the semifinals and could possibly concede or lose the team award second place or third place to us. So yeah, so over here, once I played the Raccoon Dog, Joanna did play the standard response, so I felt pretty comfortable up to this point. So until when Joanna played e3, in a way, it was kind of something that I didn't expect. I thought she would still go with the standard e7 response. So I did kind of take a moment to kind of think through. Just want to be sure that I have like a very confident response and grip on this semifinal spot. So I did play c6, which I felt fairly comfortable, just kind of establishing d6 to kind of aim for f4. So even if she played, maybe f7, I would still be able to cut in, and if she played this, I'll still be able to have some moves of my own. Maybe such a sequence could ensue. So I did feel comfortable with this move. Thereafter, she kind of surprised me to play c7, which immediately gave me the quick opportunity. I did look at c8 briefly, but I thought that, hey, c5, f4, e7, such a great sequence for me to just immediately jump in. I'm not exactly sure whether she had intended to kind of give me any form of chance in the opening, but yeah, basically, I think based on what I know about Joanna, I don't think she's kind of like the Japanese. She doesn't really give anybody chance, and given that she was kind of rooting for Song Yan from China as well, I don't think she would have given me the opportunity for free. Yeah, but I guess she probably would have some mixed feelings about it as well. Okay, so over here, White jumped into e8, quite a standard kind of cut and split the dis response. And then for me, I just kind of played a very standard edge play response in this shape. What you would do is just kind of give f8 away. This is the typical response. And if White were to choose this, then I would simply get f7 very easily. Or I could even just play c8 and she could play this. But basically, she played out the standard sequence, which was this, this, and this. So I felt fairly nestled in the middle straight away. So I did feel that I was leading. But at the same time, you just have to kind of be very careful, because Joanna is kind of, I would say, opposite of Japanese players or very technical book players. She's had a wealth of experience. She's played Othello, I think, many years even before I played. So she's extremely experienced in terms of actual gameplay. So I wouldn't kind of say that, she's easy for me to handle as well, because she is basically able to kind of think on the spot, derive best moves on the spot. But over here, I did want to say that I think her weakness is typically her preparation within the opening and mid game. So I tend to think that I have to kind of run away with the opening and mid game just to kind of establish a lead so wide that potentially she couldn't chase up on. So that was my game plan, I guess. And knowing her style of play, that's the kind of typical way for me to kind of try to convert a win against her. So over here, after White played a regrouping move, even though White has established an unbalanced edge, currently it's not under threat. But at the same time, I did feel quite comfortable in my position over here. So I just needed to kind of do a centralizing move. I had so many options: c3, f3, and maybe even h4. So I did feel like it was fine. But ultimately, I played h5 because I felt that I could just cut into the middle. What I didn't want to do is surrender too many edges. Because if White already established a weak edge here, all I had to do was to kind of lure her to the left edge, and then basically I could feed the edge and exchange the corner and the wedge, and then finally get the lower edge. So I think that was the game plan where I played this move, and I wasn't afraid of White, and then I could still do black, white, black, and this would still be a very much a poison shape for White. White wouldn't be able to get a nice f3. and would probably still have to play a very poison move to get out of the position, so I could still play towards the edge fairly quickly. But yeah, basically she played b5, which kind of caught me off guard for a while, but I felt like it was still alright. So thereafter I played b6 just to centralize, and she played another surprising move. So I was kind of surprised on how she approached the game. But given that she has already captured a weak edge, I guess her approach was to try to just grab the edges and try to creep. So it did give me some pressure towards the mid game, considering that I've positioned myself in the centralizing position. So a6 was definitely a very aggressive control the edge kind of move. So thereafter I played c3. I was just kind of trying to trend towards the center, and then continue to control the center. So in this exchange, it was quite straightforward that I was just trying to give away the edges. But now looking back, I kind of feel that I might have been a bit too aggressive. So it made it more stressful for me to play out. And establishing c3 and her playing b4 does give a bit of a weakness in terms of a5 move being fairly poisoned and giving me a lot of additional pressure. Yeah, I don't think there was a real need to kind of do c3 now looking back. I could probably just do h3, or I could have just simply just played a5, a4, and even just an early a7, even right down to the edge. Oh, she could probably play b4 over here. Could break the shape here and just kind of wait, and I would still be able to fairly pressurize her to kind of concede the corner and the wedge, and I'll probably get a very straightforward win. But okay, I guess I was trying to kind of be a bit more clutch and just try to control the game. So I just kind of trend towards the center, and I gave away the edge as much as possible. So in the end, she kind of realized tempo-wise she had no choice but to grab the edge. So over here, I think I was still in great shape. I played h3 just to kind of extend another unbalanced edge, so that I can kind of just prepare and just give up the corner and just exchange the wedge, and I should still have the game. So over here, I was mentally a bit afraid of her going to g2, because if she went to g2 and if I went to g7 in response, she could just take f3, and I wouldn't have access to both f2 and c4 squares, and I would then kind of have to look for access somewhere else, and then this would start to look a bit scary. So I guess in Othello, when you're trying to surrender too many edges, it could become a double-edged sword. And that proved evident towards the end of the game. So I was a bit surprised that she played f2. So yeah, now looking at this, I was afraid to play f2. I mean, she played f3, and then I was afraid to play f2, and she would play f1. But in actual fact, if she played f1, it would be perfectly fine if I just kind of established the diagonal, and this would be fairly poisoned, and I'll still be able to capture key this in the middle, and I wouldn't have been as afraid as I was towards the end game in the actual game. So over here I did play c4 because I felt like it was a quick regrouping move in the center, and I felt confident that she couldn't wipe me out, so I felt safe. Even if she did something like this, I would still be able to grab the edges this way and fairly easily close out the game. So over here she played f2, and surprisingly, in the past, I think if I played with her, I'll be extremely safe and just kind of go to g7. But in a way, I was feeling very good in terms of my overall form and my play. I was almost very sure that when I looked at this position, I was very sure that f1 was the best, even though it did remove the f6 disc that was still available for me to play to g7. Yeah, but on hindsight, of course, g7 might have been an easier closeout than f1. Yeah, but I did play f1, and I think the software does say that it was the best move, and I was kind of plus 20 up. And thereafter, she played d1, and then I played e1, and then she played g1. So over here, this was kind of a dilemma, because in this situation, I actually wanted to go to the restroom at this point, just to kind of, relieve myself and also collect myself, just to kind of refocus on my thoughts, because I felt that I had the game in the bag over here. I just wanted to be sure in terms of how I should approach this position. My first instinct right away was actually to play a4, and then I would kind of expect either a3 or d2 immediately as a response. And I did feel that, if the reason, and then I was weighing between d2 and also a4. And if I did d2, I was kind of expecting c1, and then thereafter I could potentially play a4. But then because of this exchange, white would have this excess, and then I started to get a bit worried about how I would close it out. But I guess I got a bit lazy, or I was very tired after the Takanashi game. So yeah, even a b2 x square probably would have worked. There were so many options for me to close out this game, and yet I got a bit of afraid of just a very elementary shape. I guess tournament fatigue really got to me at that point in time. So yeah, and given that I already went to the restroom once during Takanashi game, I kind of felt bad if I went away while I was winning big. So I guess, and I think on the clock over here, she had maybe 3 minutes, and I had like maybe 13 or 14 minutes. So there's absolutely no excuse or no reason for me not to put this away. Just kind of looking back, I did feel that if I played a4, it would have been a lot easier for me to be sure that I had enough this. I think my biggest fear over here was that given that I had played f1 and this became black, I lost a lot of potential access here. So all my access was actually just to the top, to the left, and also to the bottom left. So definitely f1 gave me unnecessary stress in the playout. Yeah, but I played d2, and obviously she played c1. In this position as white, your only chance to win the game is actually to kind of do a massive creep and shut down all the excesses. But the problem with forming this 5h or allowing white to form this was because white could easily just kind of establish control of this mini diagonal between c2 and g6. So that was exactly what happened in the end game. So thereafter I played. So I think I got a bit scared and I played a5. So I'll run through the software readings on these few sequences later, but I did want to kind of talk about it without the software reading for now. So I definitely got a bit scared, and I thought that if I played a5, it would be the safer approach to go. Even if she did this, I would still be able to fairly easily capture the win this way. Yeah, so that was the sequence kind of playing through my mind, and even if she wanted to go in, I would still be able to go in here. And if she played the diagonal, I would still be able to have access easily to the corner by this way. But yeah, so the thing that happened was that was exactly what happened in that sequence. And yet, when I was visualizing a few moves before, I didn't really see something. And then when I came to this point, I started getting a bit afraid. So what I visualized in my mind was that I was thinking if I did b3, which is the most straightforward move, she would take the diagonal control to g7. And I was thinking to myself, if I did b7 over here and she took a8, and if I went right into a7, she would take b2. And over here, I would then be in a huge disadvantage because I wouldn't be able, I was afraid of this swindle because I couldn't get into either of the squares, I couldn't get into either of this corner, and I also couldn't get into b8. So even if I did play a2 here, she would still be able to shut that down and play b1 and control this momentary diagonal control, and I'll still be swindled. So I think over here when I was visualizing, I forgot that I could just simply just go b8, right? Because the typical response is you want to kind of visualize where you kind of grab the tempo for both, but at the same time I didn't have the success. So if all I did was just to visualize one more step further and believed in b8, and a7 exchange, I would simply be able to just close out the game this way. It would be a lot more straightforward, and it would be a simple win for me. Yeah, just looking back at this, I definitely have no excuse for losing this game in this way. But I guess maybe tournament fatigue or visualization, or maybe a mix of a kind of relief or fear between being able to enter the WOC semifinals, which is a long time dream for me, and to kind of compete for the world title at the biggest stage, versus the fear of losing that opportunity. So for that moment, I did think that, yeah, I mean, if I was afraid about the diagonal control, right, to g7, why not I just play b2? And if I play b2, I felt like I could easily just secure the corner, and I would be able to play out this sequence easily. But what I didn't realize was that this mini diagonal control was still very strong, and the swindle was still very evident, because if she played g7 and if I played this, she would simply just be able to shut it down this way and still force me, because I simply did not have access on this diagonal. I wouldn't be able to cut back into the corner in any way possible. So apparently it was like so apparently what happened was that I played that, and then after that, over here, I did realize that I might have played a wrong move because I didn't realize that white could play g7, and I wouldn't be able to take the corner because even if I took the corner, white would still be able to play this as a swindle, and I wouldn't be able to get h7 access, which is the critical access for the corner and the consequent move. And even doing this will not help because, it simply will not give me the access, and I will just simply shut out of that channel. So I would just eventually have to kind of be forced to play that. Yeah, so white, black, white, and I will still be forced this way, and white would still complete the last three moves. Yeah, so okay, so maybe let me just kind of play back to the part where the first AI move, AI button came up. So over here I was actually plus 30. Before I played d2, I think I was plus 38. a4 was actually the plus 38 move that I missed. But even then, so over here I missed one chance of closing it out. And over here, I did have another chance, so I did play c2 correctly. I mean, I didn't play c2 correctly, but even a5, where I was extremely afraid of messing this up, was still plus 16. So again, another mistake made. So two consecutive mistakes. And over here, I didn't miss this because she played a worse off move to a3, but at the same time, it was kind of the best possible way for her to trap me. So kudos to Joanna for doing that. So thereafter I went in, and over here that was my last chance. So I did have kind of three chances to get this right, and I kind of blew it because of my fear or my inability to kind of visualize. Just kind of thinking about it, maybe even a7 would have worked out fine in a way, because if white played to the corner and I took this, it would be fairly, yeah, I guess probably I would have a chance, but still very tight. But yeah, I guess this black move at b3, and there's no way that white would give up the corner. It wouldn't be too difficult to kind of visualize g7, and it definitely wouldn't be difficult to visualize b7, b8, and the only thing that I visualized was the fear of being swindled, but I didn't think that, hey, I could simply just play b8 and white would still be forced to play a7, and I could still easily just capture the corner, and I would be able to sweep back to this. The problem with visualization is that you tend to kind of see things that probably shouldn't be there in a way, or you shouldn't fear too much because of this momentary control of the horizontal line and the diagonal line. I ended up being a bit of scared at that point, and even if I played this, either one would have been able to kind of give me the win, even if it were a very ugly 33-31 win. Yeah, so it was extremely difficult, but I've been in this position before in 2019 where I was faced against Takanashi in round 12, and I lost the game that I should have won. And then in the end, I think I kind of went on full tilt against Jackie Fu from Canada in round 13. And then I lost pretty quickly in the mid game, opening the mid game. So this time round, when I lost round 12, I was extremely disheartened. But at the same time, I did kind of tell myself not to give up because I still had one more round, one more chance to kind of clinch the much coveted 10th win. Even though this was a huge opportunity just to kind of capture this, but yeah, just reflecting on this was, yeah. Just looking back on this, I know this game is probably gonna be in my memory for a very long time, I guess. Yeah. Well, in a way, 2019, the loss against Takanashi was in my mind for a very long time, and this time I managed to beat him. Even with a bit of luck, to me, a win is a win. I still cherish it a lot. I guess, in a way, the only way to kind of redeem this game for me now is to try to get a semifinal spot in the future WOC. But, excuse me. I guess I'm not too sure when is my next opportunity, but yeah, hopefully I'll get one pretty soon. So thank you very much for kind of staying and hearing my thoughts on this. And yeah, in a way, I guess this recording would also serve me well in the years to come, should I choose to join another WOC in the future. So thank you very much for joining me, and I'll see you at the next round, round 13. That should be the last video for the World Hotel Championship 2024, and then I'll just kind of close out with some feedback in on the whole event. So thanks, and see you in the next one.